North Carolina lets you put a beneficiary designation on almost any financial instrument or account now. Checking, savings, money market, brokerage, or retirement assets. But not all of these designations are the same or do what you think they may. Here's the honest breakdown of what works, what doesn't, and what's going to be best for your circumstances. There are generally 3 probate avoidance beneficiary designation tools in North Carolina. We'll start with number 1, which is payable on death designations. These are exclusively bank or deposit account assets. So think checkings, savings, money market accounts at the bank. Payable on death, also known as TOD, allows you to designate a beneficiary on the account directly to receive the benefit of that account if you were to pass away. Payable on death means that the bank account will be closed out, shut down, and the value of that account will be issued in a check to the named beneficiaries. It could be one or multiple named individuals or organizations or entities. The bank will make a check out to that share of the account to the named beneficiaries directly. The account will cease to exist after that. Number 2 is transfer on death or transferable on death designations. And this is almost exclusively for post-tax investment accounts. Think brokerage accounts with Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity Investments, where you're holding investments that you bought, paid for from post-tax money, not pre-tax retirement accounts. Transferable on death, or TOD, means that the account itself and all of the securities in it will transfer to the beneficiaries that are named after you've passed away. That means that the bank is not closing out the account, they're not selling the securities, and they're not just transferring cash. The securities themselves will transfer to the named beneficiaries if at all possible. If you have an uneven number of shares of a specific stock that can't be divided in half, then the excess, the oddball, will be sold to create cash, and the rest will be transferred in kind. An in-kind transfer means the securities that you bought become owned by your beneficiaries, not substitute securities, the ones that you actually bought. The third are going to be beneficiary designations, often primary, secondary, or tertiary, on things like retirement plans or life insurance and annuities. These are individual plan assets that you're naming a primary and secondary beneficiary, creating some conditional logic. If the primary survives, then they get it. And if they don't, then the secondary gets it if they survive. For retirement accounts, this is similar to a transfer on death, but it has specific rules attached to it called the Secure Act. For life insurance, it actually acts a little bit more like a POD account. A check is issued to the named beneficiary for the amount of the death benefit payable to them. Our team helps families avoid probate every single day. Click the link below to start the conversation. Now, when it comes to bank accounts, the question becomes, should I have a POD or a joint owner? And the answer is, it depends. Most of the time, people want bank accounts to avoid probate and be accessible by their kids if they were to pass away. A payable on death beneficiary designation allows that to happen without you sacrificing any ownership of your own account. If you add your child as a joint tenant, then they may also get access not after you're gone, but also while you're here. They become a joint owner and are entitled to the same authorities of ownership that you have now. They also expose those assets to the same types of risks that you may have, but maybe worse. Their divorce, their personal injury, or breach of contract could subject your assets to their claims. A payable on death designation doesn't transfer ownership while you're living. So if they get into trouble while you're still here, there's no impact on your assets. TOD on your investment accounts works pretty much the same way. You get to hold exclusive 100% ownership and authority for those assets during your lifetime, but after you're gone, they transfer easily to your beneficiaries. But just like the POD, it doesn't subject your assets to their liabilities if something happens while you're living. And when it comes to retirement plans and life insurance, we're not able to add joint owners. So we don't really have to worry about those risks. We do want to lean heavily into the beneficiary designations and be very intentional as to who or what we're naming. Sometimes it makes sense to name an individual if they are mature, like an adult child, or if it's our surviving spouse. Sometimes we want to name a trust if our beneficiary is a minor or has a disability or has shown to us that they need asset protection. Poor choices have been made, maybe some drug problems in their recent history. Something other than outright is probably more appropriate. But we generally don't like naming the estate as the beneficiary of retirement or life insurance assets because we subject those assets to probate instead of avoiding probate. We know you have questions about this. Don't let them go unanswered. Click the link below. Now, where do beneficiary designations really not help at all? Well, it's in the areas that don't allow beneficiary designations to be placed. First and foremost, real estate. Your primary home, a rental, vacation property, farmland, or really any combination. North Carolina doesn't have transfer on death deeds, and so we can't add a beneficiary designation to real estate. Likewise, our car titles, our Toyota or Ford or anywhere in between. North Carolina doesn't allow transfer on death car titles. And as I mentioned earlier, when you have minors or a child or beneficiary with a disability or one that's under guardianship, where they're not legally allowed to, or it would be detrimental to their public benefits if we name them outright. Now, these beneficiary designations are like a baton handoff. So what happens if they don't survive you? In most instances, unless we have a backup beneficiary listed on the beneficiary designation, the designation itself fails, and we need to replace the person who is no longer here. If you just don't get around to updating that designation, then that account is probably going to go to someone that you didn't want it to, or through the process of probate, which will take a while and cost a decent amount of money. Now, this is all part of good estate planning. So how does it coordinate with the rest of your plan? We want to make sure that the right beneficiaries are getting the assets that we want them to in the right way. Always intentionally so, and not just by default. So if we have trusts, we want to make sure that the trust is appropriately funded, sometimes with lifetime retitling and other times with beneficiary designations like with retirement and life insurance. Right. If we use a will plan and we're otherwise trying to avoid probate for these types of assets, we want to make sure that the beneficiary designations are updated consistent with your legacy, who you want to get each of these assets. It could be the same flow of assets for every single asset, or it could be specific beneficiaries for specific assets. But coordination is the whole game. This will not work appropriately if you don't update and audit and stay on top of these beneficiary designations and how they align with your estate. These tools work when they fit. They fail when they get bolted onto a plan that wasn't designed around them. If you have any of these in place and you're not sure how they interact with the rest of the plan, that's the conversation to have. Click the link below. People's biggest mistake isn't failing to plan. It's failing to update. Make sure your plan is ready when it matters most. Give us a call and schedule your consultation.